If getting your child out of the door feels like negotiating a hostage release every single morning, you're not imagining it. Maybe it's turning off the TV for dinner, leaving the playground, walking to school, leaving the grocery store, or maybe it's the 45-minute standoff over putting on a pair of socks. We see families dealing with this every single week, and one story has always stuck with me. A mom brought her daughter into her office because one of the biggest struggles at home was transitioning away from TV. She already knew what was coming every time she reached for the remote. The tears, the yelling, the overwhelming emotions. It didn't matter whether she gave a 5-minute warning, a 10-minute warning, or count down from 30. Every transition felt like it ended the same way, with a meltdown. Parents in that situation usually start asking themselves really hard questions. Am I being too strict? Am I being too soft? Do I need a better parenting strategy? They track reward charts, visual timers, consequences, and every parenting trick the internet has to offer. Some of those things help a little, but they rarely solve the problem because they're addressing behavior before understanding the nervous system that's driving it. Here's what I want you to understand. A transition isn't just changing activities, it's changing neurological states. That may sound like a small difference, but actually it changes everything. When your child is watching TV, their brain has already settled into that activity. It's predicting what comes next, the next scene, the next joke, the next song. The brain loves prediction because prediction feels safe and efficient. Then in an instant, someone says, TV off. From your perspective, that seems like one simple request. From your child's perspective, their brain has to abandon the prediction it already has built, create a brand new plan, hold that plan in working memory, regulate the disappointment of stopping something enjoyable, organize their body for the next activity, and shift their attention, all within a matter of seconds. Neuroscientists call that process set shifting, and it's one of the most neurologically demanding things children do every single day. Now here's where it gets really interesting. If your child's nervous system is already stuck in a state of stress, that neurological shift becomes exponentially harder. And that's exactly why some children seem to fall apart during transitions, while others move through them with very little difficulty. So why does one child here time to turn the TV off, shrug their shoulders, and move on, while another child completely falls apart? It comes down to how the brain handles change. The part of the brain that's doing the most of the work during a transition is the prefrontal cortex. You can think of it as the brain's CEO. It's responsible for planning, organizing, problem solving, regulating emotions, and something called executive function. One of the most important executive functions is that set shifting, the ability to let go of one task and successfully move on to the next. The interesting thing is that the prefrontal cortex is one of the last parts of the brain to fully mature. It continues to develop well into our 20s. That means children are already trying to perform a neurologically demanding task with a system that's still under construction. Now imagine that developing brain is also dealing with ADHD, anxiety, or sensory processing challenges. The diagnoses may be different, but what I find fascinating is that they all make transitions harder for different reasons. A child with ADHD often has a hard time disengaging from something that's capturing their attention. Their brain becomes deeply invested in the current activity, so asking them to stop isn't just changing what they're doing, it's asking them to completely reorganize where the attention is going. A child with anxiety is already predicting what could go wrong next. Before the transition even happens, their nervous system is anticipating uncertainty, which means they're entering the transition with the gas pedal already pressed down. A child with sensory processing challenges is working incredibly hard just to filter the sights, sounds, movement, and touch around them. The brain is already using a tremendous amount of energy before you ever ask them to switch activities. Different diagnoses, the same neurological challenge. Now let's zoom out even further. Remember the gas pedal and brake pedal analogy we've talked about before. The sympathetic nervous system is a gas pedal. It helps you respond to challenges, stay alert, and take action. The parasympathetic nervous system, especially the vagus nerve, is the brake pedal. It helps your body regulate, recover, and adapt to change. A healthy nervous system moves smoothly between those two systems all day long. But many of the children we see don't have a nervous system that's shifting smoothly. Their gas pedal has been pushed down for so long that it begins to feel like normal. The brake pedal becomes hard to engage. We call that dysautonomia, a nervous system that's lost some of its ability to regulate and adapt. Now think back to that child watching TV. You're not just asking them to stop watching a show. You're asking a nervous system that's already stuck in high gear to shift into a completely different neurological state. No wonder it feels so hard. And once you understand that, you stop asking, how do I make my child obey better? You start asking a much more important question. Why is my child's nervous system struggling to shift gears in the first place? So if transitions are really a nervous system issue, the next question becomes, how did the nervous system get there in the first place? This is where I often talk about what we call the perfect storm. Very rarely is there one single event that creates a dysregulated nervous system. More often, it's a series of stressors that begin stacking on top of one another. Maybe it started with prenatal stress, then it became a difficult birth, an induction, a C-section, or vacuum delivery, or long labor. Add in early ear infections, antibiotics, falls, poor sleep, screens, and the constant stimulation of the world our kids are growing up in today. None of those stressors has to create a problem by itself. But when they begin stacking together, the nervous system can gradually lose its ability to regulate and adapt. That's why I tell parents that transitions are often one of the first places we see nervous system dysregulation show itself. A child who's stuck with the gas pedal pressed down doesn't just struggle with leaving the TV. They often struggle with getting dressed, going to school, trying new activities, bedtime, and changes in routine because every transition asks the nervous system to do something it no longer does efficiently, shift. There are absolutely things you can start doing at home. Give your child previews before transitions instead of surprising them. That isn't just a parenting trick, it's giving the prefrontal cortex time to build the next prediction. Keep routines as consistent as possible because predictable routines reduces the neurological work the brain has to do. Add movement before difficult transitions. A few minutes of jumping, climbing, or running can help discharge some of that sympathetic energy before asking the brain to shift gears. Protect sleep because sleep is when the brain restores many of the neural systems responsible for executive function and regulation. And don't underestimate your own nervous system. Children co-regulate with the adults around them. The calmer your nervous system becomes, the easier it is for your child to borrow that regulation. But I also want parents to hear this. Sometimes you've done all those things. You read the books, you've brought the visual timers, you practiced the countdowns, you stayed calm, and your child is still struggling. That doesn't mean you failed. It means simply your child's nervous system needs more support than home strategies alone can provide. That's where we begin at Milestone Family Chiropractic. Instead of guessing, we use neurological insight scans to objectively measure how your child's nervous system is adapting. We look at heart rate variability, neurospinal tension, and autonomic balance to better understand why the nervous system is getting stuck. From there, we create a gentle, individualized care plan designed to help the brain and body communicate more efficiently so the nervous system can begin adapting the way it was designed to. I think back to that little girl who couldn't transition away from the TV without a meltdown. A few months into care, her mom said something that has stayed with me. She didn't start by talking about the TV. She simply smiled and said, "She's just happier." As we talked more, they realized those transitions that used to end in tears had become easier, not because someone found the perfect reward chart, but because the nervous system had become more adaptable. I think that's the message I want to leave with you. The goal isn't to create a child who never struggles with transitions. The goal is to build a nervous system that's flexible enough to move through them, because the transition isn't just changing activities, it's changing neurological states. And when the nervous system learns how to shift again, everything else starts becoming just a little bit easier.